Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Here with the rookie role segment. And I needed someone with good perspective to come join me and really talk about this excellent draft class that the Ravens had. Draft class that I really liked. If you guys followed along on draft day, all guys that were very high on my board, especially in the first 5 rounds. How are they going to fit into this offense and defense in their first year? Obviously, long term, the organization is set up really well. But what about this first year? What about week 1? What about training camp? All that fun stuff. So here to join me, Sarah Ellison from The Vault, the Ravens Vault, her and her co-host Bobby Trossett, every day at noon, Monday through Friday, going live, putting out mad content over there. Sarah, I know you work hard. Saw you on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. That was great. Just all over the place. So for you to make time for me, it really, really means a lot. I appreciate it.
No, Jason, no. It's always a privilege to talk football with you. I know how much you study. And so I said before we came on air, don't be surprised if I turn some questions back around on you, because I feel like I can learn from you, and especially on these draft picks and all the film that you've done on them. I haven't done that. So this should be a fun conversation.
It really will. And personally, I'm going through my quote unquote depression mode now. Because I've been studying tape since, the first preseason game when I got it. And now I'm done. I'm finished.
You got to find a new project here.
Find new projects. I'm going to do some yard work and try to get some sun and try to do some other stuff. So I really appreciate you. So the Ravens' first round pick was Nate Wiggins, someone that I had high on my board. He was number 24 on my board. The only defensive back I had higher was Cooper DeJean. And I found it interesting when Eric DaCosta went on with Garrett Downing and Ryan Mink that they asked about DeJean. And he kind of led on that was another player that they were coveting or would have taken with that pick.
Yeah.
I like DeJean's fit a little bit better in this year's defense, even though I think Wiggins as a lockdown corner, obviously from now and in the future, will pay bigger dividends. But Nate Wiggins, great pick, can play inside or outside. What do you think about just him as a player prospect from what you've learned since the draft?
So just that, I guess a couple of things, especially after I watched the that social media video of him doing drills with Javon Baker, who the Patriots took. Also in the 4th round, I think they were just a couple picks apart. But I love his patience. It doesn't bite on every single move, but I think that he can afford to be patient because of his crazy recovery speed. Ran that 4.28, which turns out he was unhappy with. Lots of people were freaking out about it. And he's just like, what? That wasn't good enough, So that recovery speed, you can't be sloppy against him. You gotta be on your P's and Q's. And we had, after you were on our show that first draft night, we had Marlon Humphrey on the show. And I had asked him point blank, if Wiggins is there, Cooper DeJean's there, who you just brought up, and Kool-Aid is there, who A, would you pick, and B, best compliments you? And the rest of the guys like Stevens on the roster. Now, I thought for sure he'd be biased and pick Kool-Aid out of Alabama. But he said Wiggins. He straight up said Wiggins. He's like, he just does things that, we don't necessarily have in being that cover corner. And then he predicted that they would take Wiggins. So I also feel like he alluded to the fact that he had some insider knowledge on that because he'd been in poking around at the Ravens facility while during some workouts, I think. And yeah, I just feel like he compliments him. I hear what you're saying with DeJean. Like he's another guy that just brings a lot of versatility, similar but not exactly the same as Kyle Hamilton. And so it would be fun to like move those chess pieces around. And yet at the same time, they just don't have somebody like Wiggins. And so it seems like having that compliment helps, and watching him just stick with people and mirror the receivers and mirror their moves and stay in their hip pocket. Those are all great things. While he's still a little bit lighter, got to be careful about some of those bigger receivers, got to be careful about throwing screens over to his side. But he can put on that weight. It may not be, by September, but he can fill out, and he will fill out. He's only 20. So it's an intriguing pick, and I want to be able to put him on like they used them at Clemson, just on the best receivers that the Ravens match up against.
Love it. And, the patience part of it, it's just wonderful to be gifted with speed or size or any one quality like that, because it's almost like a receiver who has that deep speed. They might not be the best route runner, it's stopping and sinking their hips and breaking, but having that speed backs everybody up a little bit. So you don't have to be the best route runner to be able to run the whole route trees when you have elite speed like that. So yes, Nate Wiggins' speed allows him to be patient. And, he didn't like the 40. I saw him pull up, and he didn't do any drills after that. So I made in my combine notes that pulled up during the 40. So I do believe him when he says that he could have ran better than the 4.28. It looked at the end like he just kind of eased up a little bit, and then we didn't see him for the rest of the combine, which I think might have hurt his draft stock. When you don't go through those drills, better for the Ravens worked out. So what I'm wondering is how we're going to work this out, because the Ravens already had two good starting outside corners in Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens. They already had options in the slot at Arthur Millette, and Kyle Hamilton played a lot in the slot. I want to bring this graphic up just to show people at home. Took a screenshot of the Ravens' base nickel defense. Now, for you guys out there at home, you might know that the most popular personnel for offenses to run is 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers. So when the Ravens face 3 receivers, and by the way, even the Ravens run it more than half the time. Teams like Cincinnati and the LA Rams will run 3 receivers 70% of the time, 75% of the time. So you're going to be seeing this defense alignment a good bit during the season. Now, the Ravens last year, here's your 4-2-5 or nickel defense. You see the 4 guys in blue on the line of scrimmage: Kyle Van Noy and Clowney on the edge, Matabike and Michael Pierce. Those are your 4 up front.
You have your line.
It is a nice line, and they'll all be back, by the way, except for Clowney. Minus Clowney. So we'll have plenty of options there. Your 2 linebackers, Roquan and PQ. And you can see your 2 safeties there in green, which is Marcus Williams and Geno Stone. And Kyle is lined up in the slot. So Kyle is not highlighted. The only 2 players who aren't in the screen right here are your 2 outside corners. So Brandon Stevens and Ronald Darby's lined up right outside the number 8 on the Texans there. He's taking that receiver. But the reason I wanted to bring this up, Sarah, is, Kyle was used a lot as that slot cornerback, as that nickel cornerback, and he did a lot of damage there. I think he broke Ed Reed's record for tackles for losses, got sacks, just a monster near the line of scrimmage. With Wiggins in the fold now, and as talented as he is, and you still have Marlon Humphrey, you still have Brandon Stevens, do you think that this pigeonholes Kyle more into a safety role, especially with Geno Stone being gone? Like, how do you see it working if we're blessed enough to have everybody healthy? It's week 1. You want Kyle in the slot. You don't want him to just be off the line of scrimmage all the time or away from the line of scrimmage. Like, how do you see Wiggins fitting in here? And what happens with Marlon? What happens with Brandon? What happens with Kyle?
Yeah, this is interesting. Shortly after the draft, I had posted an image that I was excited about the nickel defense because I'm thinking of their top 5 players, which is what you generally do. You just want to get your best players on the field. And so at that point, to me, it would be obviously at safety, Hamilton and Williams, and then at cornerback, Stevens, Humphrey, and Wiggins. So if those are your 5 best defensive backs, then that scenario pushes Humphrey into the nickel slot position. And what I'm hearing from you, which is totally understandable, that you're like, I don't want to take like Humphrey's a great nickel. He can play inside, but he's not quite Hamilton. What Hamilton is there.
Right.
And so that's the conflict, right? Whereas if the Ravens had taken DeJean, which is probably why you're saying, you can tell me if I'm wrong. If you had taken DeJean, then you put DeJean as the strong safety, and then you can put Hamilton in the slot. And by the way, you could even play with him a little bit and like kind of, interchange him there. And then you would keep Humphrey and Stevens on the outside. So that'll be interesting. I think one domino that hasn't fallen yet that we don't know. I'm still projecting the Ravens to sign a veteran safety. And unless Sanusi Kane is like ready to go right away, which is like would be a tall task for a 7th rounder, pick 250 there. That's a lot to ask of him. And so if you do end up signing a veteran strong safety, then that does free you up to play with Hamilton more. But at that point, you're either taking Wiggins or Humphrey off, right? Or Stevens, like I guess it could be one of those 3. But you could rotate them a lot. You could do it based off of the personnel of the offense that you're playing, right? So if you've got this speedy guy that's gonna you would want to put Wiggins on him, right? And then maybe it would be Humphrey that comes off, or it's Stevens or whatever. Or if it's like this bigger group, then it would be Wiggins that comes off. And then, but my point is the key to all of this, if you want to get Hamilton back in that slot once in a while, I feel like you're still going to have to sign a veteran strong safety.
Agreed. Daryl Worley's still out there. He was the guy that played that strong safety spot when Marcus Williams was hurt and Geno Stone was covering free safety for Marcus Williams. That's when Geno got all his interceptions back there in, Roman center field. And, Geno was a really good fit for free safety. I think it's just such an advantage for him because there aren't a lot of free safeties out there. There are a ton of strong safeties. See, Bo Braid is another guy that I like better than Sanusi Kane. So interesting to see how they mix in with all that.
They announced all that officially today, right?
They did. They did. By the way,
on the rock.
Sarah, keep an eye on Julian Pearl, right tackle out of Illinois. I thought he played left tackle for Illinois, but he's going to profile better as a left tackle.
Well, let me put one back at you because we just had Emery Hunt of CBS Sports, mad crazy. Draft guy. He was in love with Hardy, wide receiver. He said he actually had him graded higher than Devontez Walker, and he had Walker. He had a lot of good things to say about Walker. So I just wanted to see your guy to put out there and add another one to it.
Yeah, the Hardy, interesting prospect for sure. I think, for me, I concentrate more on I don't concentrate as much on the smaller school guys. I have to be honest. Emery and I split on that. I remember when I was listening to him talk about Kieran Amagaji on your channel, a tackle from Yale. And he was talking about how, he was dominating Morgan State and how Morgan State had these awesome pass rushers. And I'm like, come on, Emery. I know you're a small school guy and everything, but like Amagaji barely had to get out of his stance at 6'8" with 36-inch arms to guard those guys. So, but I'm definitely going to be digging into more of them. But Hardy, definitely interesting. The only thing with this is
there's your next project. You can look back into all these undrafted guys.
For real, that's where it's going to go. But with the Ravens, it's hard to make it as an undrafted wide receiver because their wide receivers like Deontay Hardy and Tylan Wallace are their core special teamers. So, I mean, I'm wondering, Tylan's really going to have to fight for his spot as the sixth receiver.
On the bubble. Quintessential bubble guy. Yep.
Right. So it's going to be hard for any of these guys to make it as I'm a pure receiver. I don't play special. Like they're going to have to ball out on special teams. So I almost just want to wait and see how good of a receiver almost doesn't matter because your top 4 receivers are already set. And your 5th and 6th receivers are going to be your core special teams guys trying to get active on game days. Deontay Hardy, Sarah, excellent return player with returns back in the NFL. I think that's his spot. And I think he got $1 million guaranteed, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they don't just hand that out to anybody. Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to have a real return role. So yes, you touched on it though. Why I had DeJean just a little bit higher than Wiggins was DeJean can play outside corner. He's got that Marcus Peters type ball skills at corner and off corner with just excellent eyes. He can play safety, and you could move him and Kyle back and forth in the slot and use Kyle as weapon X. I'm just a little concerned for this year that Kyle's going to get pigeonholed into strong safety. I don't want to see that, because like you said, our best 5 DBs are who they are at this point. Kyle and Marcus at safety and those 3 corners that we talked about. What do you think about the possibility, Sarah, when there are only 2 corners on the field? We saw Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith, Neither one of those guys started. Jimmy Smith ended up making a big play, the biggest play in Ravens Super Bowl history, maybe at the end. Is there a chance that even someone as talented as Nate Wiggins is like eased into the program?
Sure.
Slid steps.
Sure, for sure. You kind of want that for almost everybody. We had Tyler, I'm forgetting his last name, starts with the P, but he is a former Super Bowl tackle who coached Roger Rosengarten in high school, and he and Joe Staley were kind of mentors to him. And I asked him, this was yesterday, I said, do you see Roger being able to start right away? And he said, listen, he's got the mentality for it and he's going to be going for it. And, you know, it's a good chance he will. He goes, however, as his mentor, if the option was there to like ease him in, I would prefer that, because you just want to just, you know, protect these guys as much as you can. And so because of the situation we're bringing up, this is not bad for Wiggins. This is not a bad situation that you have a plethora of options to go with there within these different packages. And so, you know, it's always fun from a fan perspective to see somebody come out week one. Like, how awesome would it be that we see Wiggins out there week one, takes, you know, I don't know, 75% of the snaps and gets a pick six or something, you know, like that would be an amazing story. But the more likely scenario and the better scenario for these young guys, as good as they are, is to be able to ease them in. And I mean, that used to be the norm, especially at quarterback back in the day. And that used to be the norm. We're going to draft you, but you're probably not going to get out there for, you know, 2 or 3 years. And it just kept creeping up to the point that you just start these guys right out of the box. And some of them are able to step up. CJ Stroud, Lamar didn't come in right away. He had Joe Flacco, so he had that luxury. So even like a 2-time MVP like Lamar, though, didn't come in until, what was that, week 8 or something like that. And so that's nice. It's nice to be able to sit there and get the feel for an environment and almost get to the point where it's like, oh, I'm ready for this. Get me out there, rather than being like, whoa, what is going on? I don't even know what this is all about. So absolutely, I think, you know, the best route almost always is to ease these rookies in.
I mean, it's a great quote unquote problem to have, because before the draft, we had very little proven depth behind Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens. It was JAD was your other outside corner. Now you have 3 like blue chip type. They could press, you know, Marlon and Brandon Stevens can press and bully someone towards the sidelines. Now you add someone else like Nate Wiggins, same type of profile, just even faster. I mean, it's exciting. And, you know, with Brandon Stevens being a free agent after this year and Marlon Humphrey's contract getting more and more expensive and him getting a year older every year, it's a great move for the future. Like this was a total Ravens move. I probably should have had Wiggins even a few spots higher on my board, but I was kind of falling in love with DeJean and the match where he could play outside corner and safety and slot and all that other stuff. So love the pick for the Ravens. So mentioned you had Roger Rosengarten's coach on, Sarah Ellison. You know, he's just excellent.
Bobby got that one. I can't take credit for it.
Okay, well, you did get Steve Young, though. You got Steve
Young. That's true.
Let's say that's a big get.
True.
Big get. So for the people at home, I wanted to play my synopsis of Roger Rosengarten. I did a show with Alec Polianis before the draft, Sarah, and it was basically on my risers and fallers. Mm-hmm. So went through the biggest risers on my board and the biggest fallers on my board. And Rosengarten was one of my biggest risers. And the reason was there was this deep group of tackles, and, you know, I had him in tackle number 12, tackle number 13, tackle number 14. And, you know, I started him off at 93. And then I started looking around at mock drafts, and I'm seeing him go in the 4th round or the 5th round. I'm seeing top 100 lists. He's not on it. And I'm like, okay, I didn't think much of it. And then the more I'm watching on my second and third watches, I'm like, this guy is really, really good. Mobile. He's going to fit our new scheme. I think he's got an upside as a left tackle. So I wanted to play for everybody my comments. I did cut it so it didn't go too long. My comments the week of the draft on Roger Rosengarten and why he was a riser on my board. Seeing him go on mock drafts in the 4th and 5th round, and I don't see it. With Roger Rosengarten, maybe there's a chance that I look idiotic and why are you having him this high on your board? And, he does end up going in the 4th and 5th round like people are projecting, but one of the more athletic tackles in this draft. He just moves really well. Like you said, he was protecting Michael Penix's blind side. Not a perfect prospect. His anchor worries me a little bit. He is just quicker, faster. You're talking about being able to block in any scheme. That is him. Very mobile. I think that the ceiling is sky high for Roger Rosengarten, and there's a chance with all these other tackles that we're talking about that he could be one of the ones that stand out and be like, why did this guy go before him? And why did these 5 guys go before him when Roger Rosengarten is, like Pro Bowl upside, I think, with him. Really interested to see where he lands on draft night, Alec. My gut is telling me he's like a 3rd round guy, maybe higher.
Yeah, I like how you were like at the beginning, we're like, maybe I'm going to look like a dummy for having him this high, but you kind of nailed it. I mean, end of the 2nd round, just obviously close to the 3rd round. So you're like 3rd round, maybe higher. And that's exactly what it was.
And the Ravens must have had him even higher on the board, the way they were talking about him. And they had him ahead of Kingsley Suamataia, who I thought would have been a really good fit.
Nick Fisher.
Blake Fisher is another guy that I felt like I was going out on a limb. Having him as a 2nd round, I gave him a true 2nd round grade. So he was in the 40s on my list. But yeah, just an excellent tackle class. It was really hard to order these guys. Sarah, it's usually the opposite problem. It's like, should I really put this guy on my board? I don't think he has much of a chance, but we might want, just taking chance with guys this year was just unbelievable. I'm glad EDC finally came clean yesterday and said historic draft, because that's what I was calling it. And the EDC finally gave up the ghost and was like, yeah, it was historic yesterday. So
wow.
I was happy to have
I'm going to hold on to that word more. I mean, you're projecting it to be that. I can't project it because I haven't studied these guys like you have, but I can someday. I'd love to look back and say it was a historic draft for the Ravens.
It's important to take your ego out of it, because this, I love this draft class. It could end up being a bust of a draft class. You just never know. Or the Ravens could have took guys that I wasn't high on, and it could turn out to be a great draft class. So you got to take yourself out of it and just give it time to grade. I'm not big on this, grading the draft classes, because I don't know. I just feel like you're grading on needs filled and
value.
Value
according to the consensus big board, right?
Right. So yeah, it's important to take ego out of it. So Roger Rosengarten, obviously I loved him as a prospect. I think his upside is as a left tackle. I mean, I think that he could actually take over for Ronnie. He's just that good of a pass protector. My question for you is, this year, you touched on it a little bit, does he get eased in like we saw with Orlando Brown Jr., where he didn't come in? James Hurst started the first 8 games at right tackle. Or is he just so good of a system fit, run blocking wise, pass protection wise, just a better player than, say, Faalele, where he starts right away? Now, I know you don't know the answer to this, but what does your gut tell you, and what do you think? Like, if you had to put percentages on it, what would you say?
Well, as I answer this, I'm very curious. I don't know if you have it handy, or if you can while I answer this. I would love to see your offensive tackle draft board. I would love to see it if we could take a look, because I want to see exactly what you had him in comparison to some of these other guys. But my gut feeling says he's going to start week 1. And I say that because unless Daniel Faalele has an absolutely absurd offseason with a big jump, it'd be one thing if you kind of had a veteran there. You're like, okay, let's ease in Roger Rosengarten, but Faalele is going in. Is this his 2nd or 3rd year?
This will be his 3rd year. He was a 2022 draft choice, so last year was his 2nd year.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it this way. I think it would be Roger Rosengarten's starting position week 1 to lose. I think that they've got him penciled in there and would love to see it. That being said, they're probably going to have him when he first gets into these OTAs and the mandatory camp and then training camp. They probably won't immediately give him those starting snaps and maybe just kind of ease him in. But I think at some point they're going to give it to him. They're going to give it to him in training camp, and let's see how he responds. Let's see how he responds with some of our edge rushers on the other side. So what's funny is the edge rushers, other than Kyle Van Noy, all have something to prove too. So it's not like it would be the same competition as if like TJ Watt were out there testing him in training camp. So, but I just feel like he's a better fit with what Todd Monken wants to do, which is just use the 5 to block, right? He doesn't like to bring in a lot of help from tight ends and all that kind of stuff. He has more of a zone blocking scheme. Whereas I feel like if Greg Roman were still the offensive coordinator, I feel like Kingsley Suamataia would have been the better fit. Just this, kind of a bigger body, not as athletic and whatnot. Or quite frankly, Falele would probably be a great fit with Greg Roman, but they just want to be on the move. We've got those screens that he keeps trying to hit out to Zay, and used to be Devin Duvernay a little bit in there. And, they want to get people to that second level. They want to pull guys, all that kind of stuff. And Roger can do all that. And so I just feel like he's a better fit for what Todd Monken wants to do than Daniel Falele. So I think that gives him a leg up. And then obviously as a second rounder versus Falele, that was a 6th or 7th rounder. Falele was a 4th. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Well,
that shows you how good this tackle class is,
Sheesh. Yeah, it does. It really does. So, but yeah, that's what my gut tells me. And if it ends up being like week 4 or week 5, then, it'll be a blip on the radar when we look back on his career.
That's kind of how I feel. I think it'll be matchup dependent. And, at the beginning of the year, and it might be, people might think that's a little bit out there of a thought, but let's say our first 3 games are smash mouth type games where we're going to run the ball a lot. Maybe Falele gets some more time to ease in Rosengarten, but he was tackle number 12 on my board. And, but he was player number 60 on my board. So that just goes to show you how stacked the tackle class was.
So was there a bit of a gap?
No, not really.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Where was tell me where you had Mims, Guyton, and Jordan Morgan.
Okay, so I'm going to show it on the board right here, Sarah. I had Mims at 17. I had Guyton at 18. Okay, so that was the cluster of first round guys. Really interested to see if we would have taken Guyton had he not been picked the pick before us.
Right.
And then I had Morgan and Suamataia as the next group, 27 and 28. And then in the next group would have been Patrick Paul and Blake Fisher in the 40s. I had them at 42 and 43. Then in that third section, the value picks, I had Kieran Amagaji and Roger Rosengarten. So that's kind of how I broke it down. And really, Sarah, one of the reasons,
like a gap to me.
It is a gap. I think that the Ravens went against what they usually do. Roger Rosengarten is not a long arm player.
Yeah.
It is way against, they like guys 34 plus 35-inch arms. Roger Rosengarten, 33.5-inch arms, which does work against him at the top of the rush. His feet are so good that he's able to mirror and kind of counteract his lack of length. But that goes against the Orlando Browns, the Ronnie Stanleys, all these guys, 35-plus-inch arms that they've had playing tackle. So it was a little bit of a surprise for me as far as they had him that high, a short arm tackle. My board is geared towards the Ravens, not towards I'm like, well, he's short armed. That'll probably keep him down on the Ravens board, but obviously they coveted him, and I'm happy to see it.
One thing that I think is going to help Roger sooner than later is when we had his coach on yesterday, he's been getting pro level coaching since high school. And so when you talk about his footwork and his technique and all that, that might be why he's able to overcome, the shorter arm length. And that's another reason why I think he could be ready week 1 is that he just has been getting this absolute amazing coaching and mentoring on an NFL level since he was, super young in high school. So that is certainly going to help him out.
So, another thing that comes into play here is that with all the tackles that were taken, Rosengarten was number 60 on my board, but at that point, would I have taken him over the running back that I gave a second round grade on? Heck no. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't readjust my boards. It's just, you know, it's just where like as it stands. I saw Roger Rosengarten as at the top of the third round value. So I kind of love that. But yeah,
For you.
gap between Suamataia and Morgan. Like I had Suamataia higher. I figured he's a really long guy, big, powerful guy. That's kind of what the Ravens look for in tackles, but not anymore. It's a new day for this offense. So
new day under Todd Monken.
So, Sarah, you know who I had ranked 2 spots higher than Rosengarten is Penn State edge rusher Adisa Isaac. I had him at number 58 on my board. I don't think edge rusher was a huge need going into this draft. I kind of broke from some Ravens fans who are like, we need another edge rusher. I'm looking at it now, Sarah, and we have 6 edge rushers on this team. I'll bring up the depth chart right here. We have, of course, Adafiowe, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo, Tavius Robinson, Malik Harrison, and now Adisa Isaac. That is 6 outside linebackers on that team. That is not counting the guy that we missed last year on our roster prediction show, Malik Ham, who the Ravens like a lot and protected. So you're looking at 6, 7, maybe even more guys that are going to be competing in here. But it looks like 6 locks in the outside linebacker room. And I wanted to show this.
A lot of them are young.
A lot of them are young. So I wanted to brainstorm with you Adisa Isaac's role. I have a screenshot here they're going to bring up the Ravens 3-4 defense. So the 3-4, the 3 guys in blue are your defensive linemen. It looks like Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, and Matabike are your 3. And the 4 linebackers, Clowney on the right, Queen and Roquan in the middle. And Malik got the starting nod. I mean, this is a playoff game against the Texans here that we're looking at. You see Malik Harrison lined up on the strong side with those 2 tight ends right across from him. And Malik, what he does really well, he has turned himself into a top-notch run defender on the edge, situations and formations just like this. This is how the Ravens use Malik Harrison. When that blocking tight end runs onto the field for the other team, Malik Harrison runs on the field for the Ravens. He's going to line up wherever that blocking tight end is. And when that guy tries to block him, he's going to push him 2, 4, 5, 6 yards into the backfield, set a strong edge, handle a double team. If both of those tight ends block him, he can handle that too and dismiss guys. So you have your edge rushers with, you know, Adafiowe, your sack guys, Adafiowe, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo. Tavius Robinson, by the way, played in that spot where Clowney is now a ton to rest Clowney last year. So Tavius Robinson was your other 3-4 outside linebacker. So the Ravens have a lot of depth here. I think Isaac was clearly just the best player on their board, much like he was on my board all the way up there at 58 when the Ravens picked in the 90s. How does Adisa Isaac fit in here, Sarah? How is he going to get himself on the field?
Yeah, no, he fits in as competition. He fits in as now, if the Ravens had drafted, you know, in the 3rd round, a Sam outside linebacker, like a Bowser, what Kyle Van Noy can do, then it'd be like, oh, this is an easy fit. Like we have Kyle Van Noy for I can't remember, he signed for 1 or 2 years. And so we got Kyle Van Noy for 1 more year. And so that'll give time for him to mentor a guy that can drop back. But I've asked already several people, Emery Hunt being the latest on my show, can he drop back? And they're like, yeah, he can, but he's more like going forward and then help contain the run for now. But as you point out, Harrison does a great job of that. So to me, this is like, listen, we are putting a bunch of young guys in here and it's like a cage match, and let's see who comes out on top. Because I hear what you're saying about David Ajabo being there and some of the other guys, but obviously we know Ajabo hasn't been on the field. And obviously we knew that was going to happen with the first year. 2nd year, you know, it's just tough luck. And we know that he was, what was he valued as? Like was he like a top 15 type of guy?
He would have went. I would say safely he would have went in the top 20. I would have said top that 20, with confidence. Okay, yeah. But I mean, he probably would have went top 15. But being conservative, he was a top 20 guy in that draft before the Achilles.
Yeah. So who knows about injuries? Who knows about anything? I mean, that's just it. Like we're drafting the top guy on our board at this point. It seemed like he was high up on your board too, because you had him ahead of Roger, you said. And it's just like one of these guys has got to rise to the top, right? And that just kind of seems like what's going on here. And so it's wide open for Adisa because nobody else is quite really just taking the position, taking the bull by the horns. And so, you know, obviously we just gave the fifth-year option to Odafe, but even him, like, even he hasn't quite become what he knows he can become. So that's how I see it. For now, it's like Adisa is going to be thrown in with all these guys, and one of them's bound to rise to the top.
I like that philosophy a lot. I really like the way that perspective on it, because Adisa Isaac, you know, maybe he's not going to be the edge setter that Malik is. Okay. He's not going to be used as a weapon like Kyle Van Noy is on the strong side with his veteran smarts. You know, even Oweh is probably ahead of Adisa Isaac when it comes to the rush. When it comes to the rush, you know, pass rushing, people, you know, are disappointed in Oweh. But if you watch like the highlights and you watch him splash, he's really come a long way, and I think he's on the up and up with his pass rushing. So Isaac does like a little bit of everything good, you know, well. Maybe not. He's not the pass rusher that Oweh is. Maybe he's not the edge setter Malik is, but he's a better edge setter than some of these guys, and he's a better pass rusher than some of these guys. So yeah, I have no idea how he's going to fit. I like the idea of just throwing them all together, and you know, a lot of young guys competing and seeing and letting them work out their own rules.
Absolutely, that's how I see it.
High motor guy in Adisa Isaac. That was one of my first notes, seeing him rush over, and he's always the first one on the scene, you know, is what kind of how I describe it. There's a screen pass or there's a pass over the middle. He's the first one burning towards it. I really like that about him. And he's got a little dip in his pass rush. He's got some bend at the top of the rush that I think other pass rushers aren't as gifted as. Like Tavius is a very linear type athlete. He may never be a 5 to 8 sack guy. You know, it's just, he's a hard charging guy, very straight up, good edge defender, good run defender. But Adisa Isaac has some upside there. So in the fourth round, this is a guy I really want to talk about because I'm wondering, I could see this going a couple of different ways. Devontez Walker, pick 113. It seems like Eric DeCosta really targeted a big body receiver with some speed in this offense. The Ravens, of course, have Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. They have Nelson Aguilar. And then there are going to be two guys fighting for that special teams ace role, and Deontay Hardy and Tylan Wallace. Devontez Walker, you know, I could see a scenario where he is in the starting formation with these three receivers. He is one of your best receivers. You want them out there starting to field. I could also see a scenario in which he struggles in the preseason, getting adjusted to the NFL game, and maybe he's not even active on game day. It might be a sacrilege to say, but if the Ravens are going to only carry 5 receivers on their game day roster, and Tez Walker doesn't play special teams, that might not bode well for him at all.
Well, he might have to play a little special teams.
He might have to. Yeah, he has some return skills, by the way, too. But I think they brought Deontay Hardy in for that reason, to go ahead and play special teams.
Maybe he could be, a gunner or something. I don't know. Get down there quickly and get to the returner before he can get far. Got that speed to blaze down there.
Excited about this weapon, and I imagine you were. And me and the guys were kind of calling for Devontez Walker on our draft show. We figured it was overdue for us to get a receiver like this, and he was just sitting there at round 4, and we hadn't picked a receiver yet.
Yeah, this is exactly Eric DeCosta said on the Lounge podcast that because we know that the Ravens, John Harbaugh said that he had sent film to Lamar Jackson and wanted to get his feedback on tons of different guys, and so they asked Eric DeCosta, okay, so what was Lamar's feedback? And he said, well, Lamar didn't have a specific player by name that he wanted. He had a type of player that he felt like we needed. And Devontez Walker fits it to a T. It's the guy who can get vertical, the guy who can take a top off the defense, the guy who can go up and get, sky up with his 42-inch vert and try to get some of those high passes and some contested catches. And so he's Torrey Smith is how the Ravens look at him. Like, go down there and make guys get a PI on you because they can't keep up, and open things up across the middle for the tight ends and Derrick Henry and all the things that are going on there. So he's the it's funny, we were just talking about how the heck is the nickel package going to work, right? Because DeJean would have been like a great chess piece with what they currently have, but Nate Wiggins long term, it's a nice piece, right, for what he can do. And so it's the opposite here with Devontez Walker. It was like, you know exactly how he fits in. You know exactly how he complements the rest. And that's what the Ravens have been trying to do. They not only want good receivers, but they want a variety of receivers that can complement each other. And that's why you have the Zay Flowers jitterbug, makes it almost impossible to guard him on his cuts. And he can also go deep. I mean, he can do a lot of stuff, not the big body, but he can still, like, he's the number one receiver. Rashad Bateman, if we get him in the role that he's, perfect in, he's the route running technician that can go across the middle. Give me some of those slants, give it to me, some of those intermediate routes, and then Devontez will take the top off. And then you've got the vet and Nelly as your top four. They all just complement each other so well on paper. And so the question is, like, is he gonna, I don't know that he'd be inactive, because again, if he's in that Torrey Smith type of role, which is like, you just have to respect him and you got to put a safety back there. Like,
Nelly does that. Nelly does that too.
But he's not Devontez in terms of speed. You know what I mean? So
he's older. He's older.
Yeah.
But so, Nelson was a burner coming out. He still has the speed, but
how old is he now?
I don't even know. I feel like he's been on 4 or 5 teams already.
I know.
But he really seems to fit in well here, though. Very proud of Nelson Aguilar, 30 years old.
Wait, he turns 31 in a couple weeks, May 24th.
That's a young man to me.
Well, yeah, but not in football years, obviously. I was 14 when he was born.
Sarah.
I know you're older. I'm just saying. He's
a little bit.
We're talking football. We're talking wide receiver age, 30. Come on.
No, that's older.
We're getting there.
I don't think he'll be inactive. I don't. Okay. I'm just trying to paint a different perspective here. Like, he needs to find his role in this offense, and I think he's going to be handed some responsibilities. And if he handles those well in the preseason, he's going to be.
My thing is he has his role. Is he ready for it?
Is he ready for it? Right. What I would like to see from him, what I'm looking for, aside from just the Torrey Smith role, I think he's going to be fine, by the way, with anything deep, of course, but also in breaking stuff. He's very much a one-cut route runner. So if you're asking him to just like slants, posts, something where you just put your foot in the ground one time and go, he's fine with that. He's good with that. When you're asking him to run like a comeback route, where he's full speed, he has to stop, turn around. Right. That's where guys were plastering him at the Senior Bowl. That's where a lot of those drops came from.
Right. So now here's the question to you, though, Jason. Do you feel like he hasn't been good at those because he can't, or because he just really wasn't asked to?
The Senior Bowl showed me that he has work to do. The can't. I don't want to ever say can't, but watch. I could give you some homework. It's on YouTube. A lot of these are on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube, Devontez Walker Senior Bowl. And you can judge for yourself on the drops. I didn't think the drops were horrible. I just thought that they were all contested. Like, these cornerbacks were all over them, and the cornerbacks don't know whether you're running a post or route to go. Like, there's no clues. There's no down and distance. It's not 3rd and 7 where they need 7. Like, it's a receiver-friendly drill. The receivers can do whatever they want. And when Devontez Walker decided to threaten the guy deep, turn his hips, and then stop and turn around, it took forever. The recovery for the DBs, they were right there all over him. So that's what I would say. The one-cut stuff, though, Devontez Walker is fine. The deep stuff or the posts or the slants, he is awesome. And that's where his upside lies. What I want to know, though, Sarah, what I'm looking for is how good is he at finding space in zone? How good is he when you just say, all right, this is a little crossing route, and he has to adjust. Okay, I see the linebacker getting a deeper drop, so I'm going to have to widen my route out a little bit here or deepen my route a little bit here. I got to find space in between these linebackers and these safeties. Like, how good is he IQ-wise as far as being able to find that spot and to be able to hold on to those contested catches? Those are things that I'll be looking for in the preseason. But as far as like his role sitting there, the Torrey Smith role, yeah, he's got that all day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good question because with Lamar, you have to have a feel for stuff. You have to be able to, you know, if it all breaks down and Lamar's buying time, yeah, are you going to have a feel of how to get open for him?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
the next pick in the 4th round, TJ Tampa. Love this pick. Another great, just awesome value pick. I thought he'd go in about the 3rd round, early 3rd, late 2nd. Have to look up where I had him exactly on my board here.
Well, Mel Kiper, it was like 100 spots later than what he had him at one point.
Okay, all right. On my big board, TJ Tampa, number 64. So it's just amazing. Like we got Isaac,
I
number
mean,
50.
that's a good 37, almost 70 spots later.
Right,
We got
right.
him at 130.
So you see why I was so happy with this board, Sarah. Isaac at 58, Rosengarten at 60, and TJ Tampa at 64. I mean, just awesome. And Devontez Walker at 71. So I had a lot of love for these guys. TJ Tampa, what I like about him, Sarah, is when you watch Iowa State, it was clear to me got the clue in the first game. By the second game, I was almost sure. By the third game, I'm like, yes, this is the guy that they trust. This is the guy that he played inside. He played in the slot. He played outside. He played on the left side. He played on the right side. He played off coverage. He played press coverage. He did everything for them and matched up against their number 1 receiver. And it was just really impressive. He's got a true pro feel to his game. He's got offensive line like length. I think his arms are over 32 inches. Just a tremendous body to him. And, long speed to me was questionable. Aside from like the 40, I thought his play speed was pretty good, but not like he's not going to Nate Wiggins or a 4.3 type guy. He doesn't have that kind of burner speed, but just a pro cornerback. To get him in the 4th round, I thought was excellent because I could see him playing in the slot if he really needed to. Heck, I could see him playing a little bit of safety because at this point, with all the zone that we're playing, you want to put him in the back half of a cover 3 and have him cover one of the 3 spots deep. I think he could do that. You know what I mean? Like he's a pro's pro. He feels like a pro's pro to me, an intelligent player to have that much on his plate in college and to be able to be comfortable with every type of assignment tells me he's got a football IQ out of this world. That said, this year, I'm not sure exactly where he fits. I think that, he's got a chance to play when injuries eventually kick in. And that's about where I am with TJ Tampa.
What was his durability at Iowa State?
I had no inkling of any kind of injury problems.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. So I think he, as Eric DeCosta said, it would have been irresponsible not to take him at that point because he was like, I would have, if I hadn't had Wiggins, I would have taken him day 2. But then, here we are day 3 and I still take Devontez Walker over him. And then it's like, all right, fine. End of 4th. You got me, like this is bananas. So I think what he does is he puts Pepe Williams and Jalen Armour Davis firmly on the bubble, which is just too bad, because they were fun coming out. Lots to imagine with those 2 guys when they were coming out, and they just haven't been able to stay healthy, which is why I asked you about TJ Tampa. I mean, these cornerbacks are so, lean and quick and twitchy. And they just pull those hammies, and like it just seems like so many things happen to them.
And they have to tackle too. I mean, it's a physical position. It's a really tough physical.
Yeah, and
position.
can you imagine if like you're back there and Derrick Henry breaks through the first line of defense, and then the linebackers in the second line of defense, and it's like, ooh, I gotta run over there, Pepe Williams or whatever, and take on somebody like
Right.
Derrick Henry or
like,
whatever.
look, I got to stick with Zay Flowers, right? That's
yeah. You want and then all of a sudden tackle these big running backs or a tight end or whatever. So that's one thing I'm actually intrigued to learn more about with Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa, because there are some guys that are just nasty, and I don't care how small they are. Who was the one slot corner they had years ago? He was a small little dude, and it was a veteran that we got. I'm not going to remember his name because it was a while back. And I was like, and at the time when I'm working in the building, I would like walk up to these guys, and like I'm decently tall, especially for for a woman, but I'm like 5'9.5", somewhere around there, right? So not like super tall, but you know, above average for a woman. And I would just walk up to especially these nickel corners. Like, and I remember walking up and talking to Webb, and I'm like, dang man, I am like taller than you. I'm like looking down at you and chatting with you. But obviously they're like, but there was something about Webb, and he had his fair share of injuries too, but he just would stick his nose in there, and he was just a tough dude. And that's why I want to learn more about Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa, especially Wiggins with that size. It's like you can't teach toughness. You can't teach this nasty, tough ability to just get in there. And so that's what I want to learn about both of these guys, because I can see what they do. Nate Wiggins, the cover corner, fast guy on the outside. And I can see TJ Tampa, as you're saying, kind of like this all around kind of corner that can do a little of everything. Isn't necessarily elite in any of them, but certainly somebody that you can count on in several different situations. And so like the next thing is like what's up here and what's in here is what I want to find out as they come to Baltimore.
No question for me about TJ Tampa that he plays bigger than his size. It's he's just that kind of like team leader, do it all guy. Like you could just tell the guys gravitated to him. He was their guy. Nate Wiggins kind of knew, I think, in college, his physical where he was, which is great because you don't want to see a guy, you know, trying to tackle Derrick Henry head up, you know, hitting the pad to pad. Nate Wiggins will cut your legs out. He fly in, cut you. It's not lack of willingness. It's just smart. How am I going to get this guy to the ground? So I don't doubt either one. But TJ Tampa was like the comfort food of this draft for me. Like,
by the way, it was Corey Ivy.
Corey Ivy, yes, he was a fierce player.
5'9", 183. He's 5'9" though. I just remember meeting him and being like, when we signed him, it was just like you could rely on him so well in the slot with all these big dudes coming across the middle, and he was just unafraid.
Love it. I love it. So, you know, Rasheen Ali made my board as a running back, which is tough. You know, I don't list many running backs. I think once you get to a certain point, the UDFAs are just as good as the guys that go late. Mm-hmm. Ali made my board, Sarah, for one reason above all of the other reasons is because the more I watched him, the more I realized how darn good he was in pass protection. Like it just stood out to me. These backs, a lot of them, even the bigger ones, you know, technique will be off or they won't pick it up as quickly. Rasheen Ali picks it up, uses his arms, just extremely a good punch on these linebackers, extremely reliable in pass protection. I see him seamlessly being the third down back on this team at some point during his tenure. And you look at Derrick Henry, he's going to need his breaks. Not that he can't play on third down. You're going to play him on third down. Keaton Mitchell is a little undersized for pass protection. He's more of a
Henry blocking for you as Lamar. Thank you. Please and thank you.
Right. I want to see that at least once. I want to see Henry full back in it for Lamar one time.
I love that.
That'd be great. But yeah, I think Rasheen Ali is like a long-term option for Justice Hill. As far as the third down back, you can see Justice Hill's size work against them, especially that Kansas City game at the end.
I was just about to say, like when you said that, it was music to my ears that he could do pass protection because my vague memory was that Justice Hill was not like whiffed on a couple or just was in the wrong spot or didn't read things right.
He sees it, and he's willing. I mean, as we know, Justice Hill's style, he's a whatever to the walls type of player. You know what I mean? But his size is a skill when it comes to pass pro and these 230-pound linebackers. Rasheen Ali, that doesn't bother him as much. I mean, I know that he played at Marshall and it wasn't Ohio State, but there were still 230-pound dudes bearing down on him. And to have him square up with the pads, hands first to soften the blow, and the pads and to stonewall some of these pass rushers, like that works. That works. Not as he's IDing it. And, of course, he can catch the ball out of the backfield and all that other stuff, and he's a decent runner. But the reason he made my list was the pass pro. I think it was the first note. Yeah.
Well, outside of that, this is another guy that, just like we were saying at wide receiver, I feel like complements the group pretty well with, Derrick Henry being the battering ram and then Keaton Mitchell whenever he returns. We still don't have like a status on that. As like a jitterbugger can attack the edges and then turn up and go. and then Rasheen Ali kind of like the one cut, then straight line speed, home run hitter kind of guy. So I love hearing about the pass protection, and that's why he made your board. But then I also feel like his skill as a runner complements the other guys on the squad.
Good vision. Like, I didn't see an extra fast back or an extra powerful back or any like one skill compared to some of these other backs who are really fast or really powerful. Like, he gets what's there plus more every time. His eyes are tied to his feet really well. He sees it. He can play possum with the linebacker, make the linebacker overcommit to one lane, take it up into the other hole and stuff like that. So another player, there's a real good pro feel to his game. But yeah, pass protection, third down back, I think as early as maybe not in 2024, but 2025, that'll be the guy who comes out on the field when we have the ball, one timeout, minute 30 on the clock from our own 25. It's going to be Rasheen Ali, pass protecting, catching balls out the backfield. They even split him out wide a good bit at Marshall. So not that he is Christian McCaffrey like in his route running ability and all that. Not a body catcher, by the way. Everything he catches is away from like a really good football player, Sarah. Rasheen Ali is just an excellent football player. I would say great football player, average NFL running back athlete. Not to say he doesn't have some speed and power, but like he's more of a football player, pure football player than he is a standout athlete. There are guys faster than him, of course. There are guys more powerful than him, but his all-around game is really nice. I was happy that the Ravens got him. Yeah, so the only other prospect I wanted to touch on with you is Devin Leary. And it's just a short conversation. I just wanted to express my happiness to you that we stopped with getting a backup quarterback who can run and got us a quarterback who can throw. So my philosophy on this is like everybody looks at –
I want to hear this. I want to hear this. Tell me.
Everybody looks at Lamar and say, oh, man, if Lamar gets hurt, we're going to need a quarterback who can scramble. Well, you know what?
Well, it's not so much that you can scramble, but that you can keep the same offense going.
Okay.
That's more my thing. You got to change if Leary becomes the long-term backup, which is what they're drafting him to be. He won't be at this year. That's Josh Johnson. But it's like those are two different offenses. You wouldn't build an offense at all similar for somebody like Lamar Jackson that you would build around Devin Leary.
Josh Johnson isn't very mobile either, though.
That's true. So that's why, though, like I was somebody prior to the draft saying I want to draft a quarterback that can back up for Lamar because they don't have it, especially after John Harbaugh wouldn't even commit to Cunningham being a quarterback versus a wide receiver. And so like I just feel like your offensive line is going to have to change. Running backs are going to have to change. Tight ends, wide receivers, like everybody's going to change the way they do things because they're drastically different. Like nobody's Lamar. So it's not like whether it was Trace McSorley or RG3 or Huntley, like none of them were going to be able to do what Lamar can do, but you don't have to change your offense completely when they came in.
I would say, just my opinion, that a lot of that stuff is overblown. Unless you're talking about we're running Greg Roman's read option 15 times a game where we're using the quarterback's legs as like a direct, not a scrambling. I'm talking about like, okay, the quarterback can keep it type running threat. If we were in that, I would say absolutely we need a quarterback who can run. But like having a quarterback like even like Malik Cunningham or like a scrambler with a limited throwing, say like a game manager type arm, like we need a guy that could actually sling it like Lamar too, is what I'm saying. Because when it's 3rd and 7, the threat of the read option is out the window. You're going to need somebody who can throw the ball. So I understand stylistically Lamar's different from anybody that's ever played. Probably he's a better thrower than Michael Vick, a much better thrower. Vick had a cannon, had no idea where it was going. But yeah, I'm glad that we got a quarterback who can throw in the game when it's 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 7, where the drive's just over at that point. If it's when Tyler Huntley was in here, we were throwing just like 5-yard hitches, 7-yard hitches, and that was it. Like afraid to take a deep ball chance. I'm glad we have a quarterback who can loosen the defense up. So I don't see it like as much like a direct handoff. We're using outside zone. That's fine. He can hand it off in outside zone. He can hand it off in power. Like the only difference I see is that the read options, which have been slowly faded out, where Lamar can keep it himself or hand it to the running back is not a threat with Devin Leary. So other than those 5 plays a game, I think Leary fits better than a quarterback with who, quote unquote, really can't throw that well.
What do you think of Leary going? He really went off in 2021, I think, one of those years, and then just hasn't been able to like recapture that or even really come close. Does that worry you at all?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. I didn't study the quarterbacks this year. I tell you, they take so long. It takes so long to study, and like the people can't get them right anyway. It's really, really frustrating.
And it wasn't a primary need.
It wasn't a need. Like I figured, like I got all summer if we take a backup quarterback, and that's what we did. But I know he's got an arm, so that's pretty much. And then if T. Martin likes him, and T. Martin feels like he fits into the room well, like that to me is good too. Like maybe he sees the game in a different way. And whenever we see like Josh Johnson and Lamar in there, Josh is just like really relaxed and pro. Like Devin Leary seems like hyper focused, like a different personality in there. A rookie with a lot to prove. So maybe he can help that room and help Lamar and just a different type of personality in there.
Yeah, and I'll also say, just to obviously the current concern that I have that he's different stylistically. I mean, T. Martin grew up quarterbacking, right? He played it in college. He played in pros. And he's been with the Ravens for a while. And it sounds to me like what Eric DeCosta did is he went to T. Martin and said, hey, go out and scout the backup quarterbacks. And you come back to me with a list of who you like and all that kind of stuff. And DeCosta said that T. Martin came back and had Leary as one of the top guys as a backup, right? Obviously, there's so many quarterbacks that went ahead of him, especially in the first round. But T. Martin loved him. And what tells me that that's true is the phone call that came out when the Ravens drafted him, as they always call. At one moment, they put T. Martin on to talk to him. And they sounded like they had been best friends for years, right? Like sometimes like EDC will come on, John will come on, congratulations, kind of like your normal thing that you say. And but there's obviously not a lot of familiarity because you don't know them. You've just been watching their tape and whatnot. Maybe you've had a couple interviews with them, but then it came to T. Martin and it just sounded like these guys loved each other. And when Devin Leary had his press conference or Zoom call with the media, he couldn't say enough about T. Martin. It just sounded like they totally 1000% hit it off. And, to counter my own point, even though it's still there and a concern of mine, it's so very clear that the Ravens are agreeing with you in that it's overblown, that you want to get somebody who's stylistically like Lamar. And more than anything, we just want to take the best guy that's there in the 6th round that we think could become a great backup in this league.
Yeah, I just keep going back to the quarterback room itself. If T. Martin likes him, and from what you're saying, loves him, and T. Martin sees things, okay, he's got this and that. I know how to work on his weaknesses of this and that. That's fine. We can work on that. But he's got what I need in category A, B, and C, and he's going to add to this room and really help it. I mean, all the meetings that they spend together, all the times that they spend together, for a backup quarterback, I think that's really important. And how Lamar supports his guys. If it's T. Martin's guy, he's going to be Lamar's guy just as much. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I know that I'm in the minority with that. Like I want a quarterback who can sling it a little bit, and convert some of these longer 3rd downs. I'm not worried about somebody that can, try to be Lamar, because that's just it's kind of like you can't, right? You can't. So Sarah, final thoughts on this draft class. Just leave it to you to say anything that you would like to say about how the Ravens attacked draft day, what they came out with. We will see how they turn out. We don't have the crystal ball, but knowing the prospects like you do now and seeing them and reading all the scouting reports and hearing from everybody, how do you feel about this draft? How do you think they did overall, or any other kind of thoughts about the draft class?
So I've said on my show that I don't put a lot of stock into grades because you can't truly grade them. I mean, bare minimum, you need the rookie year. And then it's always better to wait 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years, especially when you're looking at guys like Queen coming alive last minute and Powers, and Cleveland is going to have the opportunity to do that and whatnot. So to me, what you look at is value, which is what I said earlier. And when it comes to value, the Ravens, for sure hit at least a triple. Like I was looking at Warren Sharp, comparing it to the consensus boards that are out there. Ravens had the 7th best value overall, 8th best value in the top 3 picks. That to me is at least a triple. You're a home run if you're in the top 3, I guess. So value there is good. I feel like with the top 3 picks, the Ravens got premium positions that are, very expensive, offensive tackle, pass rusher, cornerback. So that's nice. I also, by the way, I mean, I wanted a tackle first round, and I realized probably before the draft even started. In fact, I came on our live stream being like, it's going to be a cornerback tonight.
See,
and
remember when I came on and I was saying the same thing? I'm like, man, Sarah, I feel like, because me and you were on the same page, and like it just seemed that I was in between wide receiver and corner.
Yes.
And there was a run on both after us. You know what I mean? Like, it was the time for it.
Yeah, definitely. Because you saw it happening probably Monday leading in, with the rumors that were going down that people were going to go get offensive tackles. Like it just, the value wasn't going to be there at the end of the first round, which meant that either a really good corner or a really good wide receiver was going to fall to the Ravens at 30. And it just felt like to me that it was going to be a corner, though. And I said it on the show, like the first thing when we came on. So I feel like what Eric DeCosta did well was being able to look at the draft and say, okay, I'm not going to get my offensive tackle here. And so, but I have these needs elsewhere. What are the best chances of me getting, the better guys? And so if they had reached and gotten maybe a better tackle than Rosengarten, but then you would have had nowhere near the same type of corner or wide receiver if he went on. So I feel like he made the right choice by going tackle second and either CB or wide receiver first. I just had Emryon Hunt on. He's like, I would have taken a wide receiver, but I do love Nate Wiggins, So I wish that a guard could have been there, but again, some of these things are out of your control. As soon as they took Rosengarten in the next round, and really after that, the guard run started. And to go up that far, you can't do it. And I've said this on my show, like, what I don't think people understand, like there were no trades, right? But what I don't think people understand is that when this value drops to you, and I looked up the value of Nate Wiggins. So Ravens said that he was on their board between 13 and 20. We don't know exactly where, but I split the baby and said, okay, let's say it was 16. If you go to like draft trade charts, and there's a gazillion out there, right?
Right.
For them to move up that far, they would have had to have given at least a future mid-round second round pick.
And probably a first, because let's face it, the prices are on draft day, they're getting jacked up.
Right. So like everybody's like, well, just trade up and go get your man. But don't you see, the Ravens basically didn't have to give, like they got their man without trading that second round pick. Same thing with TJ Tampa. Same thing. Like every time somebody falls, it's not like, this isn't something to be like, oh yeah, you got good value. No, this is legit. Like this is real. Like this is tangible stuff. So I think that was good. I think DeCosta was saved by the Chiefs pulling out of that trade last second, because he called and said, yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, I think overall, like, feel good about it. You feel good about that they were really, like, needs kept falling to them at the right time. And so they were able to plug, short-term needs and whatnot. But outside of value and outside of needs, we're going to find out, at least within a year, how good these players are going to be. And more likely, once we talk about the day 3 picks, we won't really know until, for most of them, 3 or 4 years down the line.
I love it. So have you got a chance to like study yourself any of the players, or have you been so busy with Bobby and everything else? Like,
You mean like film study?
yeah, have you watched
No.
any?
Uh-uh.
Okay,
No,
so
I mean I've seen your YouTube clips and you
right,
kind of watch them, but those are like like everybody's highlights over several years looks phenomenal. But
right.
no, that's not uh, yeah, film study isn't necessarily the shtick of our show, and I leave that to you and then Ken McCusick. And then when I do come on to your guys' shows, though, I'm like, here I go. I better get ready because I know that you guys are ready to go down that route. So I could, but that's not where we spend our time
I
and
was
what our
just
show is
curious
about.
if you had watched any of like anybody stuck out to you. It was like, oh my goodness, I really like this pick. Like, this is my guy. Like, if you have like a my guy yet.
Well, no, Rosengarten is my favorite pick.
Okay.
He's my favorite pick, partially because we blocked KC from getting him. But also because I love his athleticism and the fact that I've been pounding the table for a tackle for years now.
Me
And
too.
instead they've had to go the veteran route of Moses and Villanueva and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, ugh, we need to get our own guy. So that's probably why he's my favorite pick. And I'd say Devontez Walker's the only one that I actually like try to study his technique, and it's only from that Baker social media post where they were doing drills together, and he's the only one that I could look at, and that's why I could say I could see he was patient. I could see why he's patient. I can see his recovery speed. I can see his mirroring. I can see all that. But no, I do not do what you and Ken do, or Cole Jackson and all and
Right.
coach Ivan, like I leave that to you guys.
Well, look, I did give you a homework assignment.
Yes, you did.
YouTube Senior Bowl Tez Walker. I'm talking it's like probably 3 minutes. You know what I mean? It's not
Okay,
good
I can
study.
do that.
But yeah, it, like you'll see what I'm saying about
I'm gonna write it down.
stopping. Yeah, the stopping being an issue for him. Like it kind of takes a long time. But yeah, man, he has got some real get up and go when he goes down the field, and guys can't stick with him. And I think the hands issues. I don't think that's a huge issue. I really don't. He makes some big plays for us. You can track the ball downfield. We got a spot for you right here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So Sarah, I'm sad it's over, but we will get together. I'll be bugging you again in training camp. Usually have people.
We'll do our roster predictions again.
Oh yeah, and our roster predictions. I can't wait, man. We really need to go 50. Somebody's got to go 53 for 53. Like, how hard is that?
You'd think it'd be easy because like 45 to 47 are super easy. And so it's like the last 5, but those last 5 could be filled by like 20 people. So
Right. And then, like what EDC was saying, Rosengarten was coveted by the league. Meanwhile, all the prognosticators had him in the 4th round. Like, we don't know, like, was Malik Ham going to be claimed last year? Like, apparently EDC thought so. We wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, like
so it's kind of tough. Like, didn't you have, like, when you were there working, didn't you have like predict them 53 competitions, and like how many people actually got all 53? Like, I don't.
There were a few, and so we'd always have to do tiebreakers with who turned it in the earliest is what we would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, it's one thing to get 53 out of 53 if you turned it in, like after a certain amount of cuts have already been done, right? When they go down to, 75 or whatever, and there's reports out and yada, yada, yada. So it's one thing to do it the night before the final roster cuts. And it's another thing to do it when you were like, you did it in, before the first preseason game or something. Although I don't know that we started it that early, but I think you get my drift that like, if you did it super early and you got all 53, that's pretty impressive.
So Sala versus Nick Samak, is that a thing? I'm looking at 9. I'm like Stanley, Falele, McCary, Rosengarten. That's 4. Linderbaum, Cleveland. That's 5, 6. Voorhees, 7. Josh Jones, 8. Sala and Samek, 9.
Is
10.
Josh Jones a lock?
I think so.
I don't know much about him, but let me look up his contract because that'll tell me everything. What's his last? Josh Jones, you said?
Josh Jones, yeah. And but just a quick synapse while you do that. He's played guard, he's played tackle, he could play left guard, he could play right guard. A veteran guy, I think that would back up Salah, both Voorhees and Cleveland. That's why I think he's a lock.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see.
Young veteran, by the way, too. I think he's only in like his 4th or 5th year. So he's bounced around a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking at that.
They could initially keep, I don't know, a few more. They're going to want to protect these young guys. So they're going to finagle it. There's no way they're going to let like Salah or Samac be gobbled up by somebody else, given that they've lost their starters and Cleveland's already in the 4th year of his rookie contract.
Right.
So they're going to have to figure out a way to finagle this. I mean, if that means that like they do the roster gymnastics and cut a different guy to a different position where they have a handshake agreement, that we'll get you right back. And we just need to move these guys here or there. But like, I mean, Salah just last year and then Samac this year, unless they're total wrecks, right? This offseason, they're going to want to find a way to keep him long term.
Yeah, that's 10 guys though. 10 guys. So I'm like,
they've done that before.
I'm already thinking like when we do our battle, have our arguments. That's going to be so much fun. Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you and Bobby for having me on. And it really feels good, man. You know, I went on before Jacoby Jones when Jacoby was MIA. So
you filled up some time. You went on to your own show, but I got to tell you, it ended up being great because Jacoby's such a you always have to be ready for different type of interviews. And while Jacoby is great because he gives you phenomenal one-liners, that's all he gives you is one line. And so it's like, can you expand upon that? And he's not really an expander, but like he nails it with one line. Anyway, so that would have been tough to have him alone. Turns out he came on late, and so it was overlapping when we had Marlon Humphrey, who's the ultimate expander and doesn't stop talking.
Right.
So it ended up being phenomenal to have both of them on at the same time, and we got a lot of good nuggets out of both of them. In fact, that interview we pulled it out separately, and it was I think it was our best performing piece from the night. I think it went for like 20,000 views or something like that.
Cool. So, I might, what? Now I'm at the point where I can catch up on all that.
There you go. You can go. Hey, we had 12 hours of live streaming. Just go watch all 12 there, Jason.
Yeah, right. But no, if Marlon calling for Wiggins, I want to hear.
Yeah, you need to go.
I want to hear the whole shebang.
They also talked about who they wanted as a veteran wide receiver. Like, I mean, they were great.
Jacoby, legend.
He's so good.
Sarah, thank you. With that, I want to say thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Thanks for everybody out there that supported, all the people that watched on draft day, followed the big board, sent in donations or whatever they're called over there. What are they called? Super chats?
Yeah.
Right? Sent in super chats. It was just shocking how much love got on draft day. And it really makes me feel like all my work was worth it. Next year, I'm thinking about sharing my notes with everyone and cleaning them up, because my notes are for me, but just kind of cleaning them up, being a little more specific so they make sense for everybody who reads it, and just expanding on them. But it was a wonderful experience. I got to be on with Sarah and Bobby. Then I had 2 nights of coverage with Yuri and Voss, and Dev Panchwa was awesome. Nikhil Mehta was awesome. Jordan and Gabe from the Situation Room. I know you know a lot, if not all of those people, Sarah. It was wonderful. It was a really good time. So I thank everyone out there for all their support. And with that, Sarah, can you please say goodbye to the people?
Goodbye, everybody. Nice chatting with everybody. Nice chatting with you, Jason. And let's go into the weekend, take a look at these rookies, because minicamp just started.